Hello and welcome to another Moog demo library. In today's video we're going to be exploring Muse, and in particular we're going to focus in on some of the new features added in the 1.4 firmware update. Now, one exciting new thing that we've added in the new firmware is new modes for LFO 1 and 2. So if I look at their More menu and I scroll down, you can see that there's a new option that's called envelope mode. You might already be familiar with this behavior because the pitch LFO has a dedicated envelope mode button, but it works a little bit differently with LFO 1 and 2 because of the waveform differences. So when I turn envelope mode on, what's going to happen is every time I press a key, the LFO cycle will be reset, and then it will run through just a single cycle of its wave and pause. So it's going to work a little bit more like an envelope would rather than a cyclical function like an LFO. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on for LFO 2 as well, so I can use both of them. It's also worth noting that if I press the global modulation edit button, that the global LFOs that we've added in the 1.4 firmware also feature envelope mode. But for now, let's just focus on the LFOs for timbre A. So you can hear where I'm starting from. I have an initialized patch. It's just using oscillator 1 set to a sawtooth wave, and the filter's wide open. So let's hear how that sounds. So a pretty straightforward sound. And now I'm going to go ahead and in mod slot 1, I'm going to make sure that the source box is highlighted. I'm going to click down the select encoder so that the text blinks, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit the assign button for LFO 1. After that, I'm going to scroll to the destination box. I'm going to click once again so that I can assign a destination, and I'm going to flick the pitch wheel to assign the keyboard. This destination will modulate anything that's tracking the keyboard. So if you have keyboard tracking on for the filters or the modulation oscillator, it will also affect those, but it will always affect the oscillators, and it will modulate their pitch. So I'm going to go ahead and set this first destination to around 20%, and let's hear how it sounds with LFO 1 running in envelope mode. So as you can hear, we have it set to a triangle wave, and it's just running through a single cycle of its waveform and then pausing. We can speed that up so that we get something more like a little blip at the beginning of the note. So just a quick bend versus if I get it really slow. I can make it much more dramatic and drawn out, but I just want something quick. You can also hear that it's pushing the pitch upwards. If I wanted it to push it downwards and then come back up and settle to the pitch, I can set it to a negative depth, like negative 20, you can hear. Now it's bending downwards and then moving back up to settle to the note. But let's go ahead and set this back to 20% positive. And now I'm going to go into mod slot 2. I'm going to assign LFO 2 as the source, and for the destination I'm going to move the cutoff knob for filter 2 to assign the VCF2 cutoff. Let's go ahead and set this to a negative value, so I'll set it around negative 30%, and let's hear how this sounds. You can hear that LFO 2 is set much slower than LFO 1, so let's go ahead and increase the speed a little bit. And maybe increase the depth so it closes the filter even further. So now you can hear I have a little blip happening on the pitch and also bringing the filter down really quickly, and let's maybe slow it down a little bit from where I set it. And we can go ahead and set it to a different waveform. So let's select the sawtooth, because then I'll get something that feels like an attack decay envelope with a really fast attack and a slow decay. So you can hear it's just jumping straight down with the filter and then settling back up to the filter's current setting. But you'll also notice that because I'm using a sawtooth wave, a little transient has been added to the sound, and you can hear a little bit of a click at the beginning when the filter's jumping way down. So what I can do to reduce that transient sound is actually go to the function box, make sure that the function is aimed at the source, and what I'm going to do is slew LFO 2 a little bit here. So let's set it to 2% slew and just hear if that reduces the click. make it a little slower. So you can hear we can slew it so slow that we stop even hearing that cycle, so it's a matter of finding the right compromise between the LFO speed and the slewing speed. But you can hear that's reduced some of that clicky transient material that we had added to our sound once we selected the sawtooth wave. And this is just scratching the surface, because then we can go into some of the user waveforms. So let's say we actually select user waveform and go back into the LFO2 menu, and let's listen to how a few of them sound. So right now we'll listen to Chebby, which is based on a Chebyshev wave folder. So you can hear we get this nice little sort of double dip. And the filter, let's try another one, so chirp. Faux delay. Fold flat. So as you can hear, we're able to generate a lot of interesting new behaviors out of the LFOs that can add unique movements into your sound design as you're making patches on Muse.